On this episode of the Second Swing Thoughts podcast, Mr. Kevin Kraft is back talking about, his playing schedule for 2025 and reflecting on how 2024 went. Plus, we ask him a little bit about his goals for the year and what he plans to achieve in 2025. So a lot of competition talk with Kevin today. Then also, we've got really a big week this week as far as the golf world is concerned. We had a pretty significant event at the Truist to go over, and then also the season's second major, the PGA Championship. We'll go over that as well and maybe make some selections, some picks for ourselves. So a great episode here, the Second Swing Thoughts podcast. Hey golfers, and welcome back to the Second Swing Thoughts podcast. Back here in studio with Sean Bauer, co-host, and Sean, we got a great one coming. Of course, anytime we have Kevin Kraft on, it's great to catch up with him, talking about his schedule for the year and where he's at competitively. And actually, as of us this recording right now, he is currently competing. So we have that, and then of course it's PGA Championship week, so we got to look at that, look ahead to that, and a lot more for sure.
Yeah, obviously, like you said, we love having Kevin on the show, and I think the audience loves having Kevin on the show, and really excited to hear about, his schedule for 2025 and kind of goes through some of the ups and downs of 2024. Mostly ups, but few that still, I think, leave him with a little bit of regret.
Right.
But, so good to hear from Kevin. And then, we got a big week here. Quail Hollow, PGA Championship, second major of the year. Shit set up to be a good one, so we'll get to there in just a little bit, but we're going to start the turn off with the Truist Championship. Mm-hmm. This past weekend's one at the Philly Cricket Club, the oldest country club in the United States, and it was Sepp Straka with the win. Became the second player this year, joining Rory McIlroy, only players to have won multiple events. He's been pretty consistent. It was kind of a two-man battle between him and Shane Lowry. Justin Thomas was hanging around, but just couldn't quite get anything, and ultimately a nice par on 18 proved to be kind of the difference because Lowry ended up 3-putting for bogey, which dropped him 2 back. Mm-hmm. But Sepp, I think he's a very good player. He might be one of the most underrated players in the game just because he's not a brand name yet.
Right.
And
yeah, I mean, but Sepp has been playing some really darn good golf the last couple of years now. In terms of ball striking, he's been among the elites, has a ton of control with his driver. He's always in the fairway. So he's been consistently within striking distance at a lot of these big events. And actually, looking ahead to the PGA Championship, Quail Hollow does set up pretty good for him as well. He's got the game to fit that. He's got enough distance to keep up. We're kind of stay within striking distance right of the Rorys of the world. But he's played well there before. And not a surprise to see him up there. And he's been knocking on that door even since he just won recently. I was kind of rooting for Lowry there just because it had been so long since he won a PGA Tour event. And he has also been a guy who's been consistently right there so many times and just hasn't come through since, I think it's 2015 since he won on American soil. He obviously had the Open in 2019. But yeah, it was a really good tournament, really fun, thrilling. You had Justin Thomas lurking there as well, who's clearly in form heading into the PGA as well. So I thought it was a pretty entertaining tournament.
Yeah, and just before we get into his, what's in the bag here, the Philly Cricket Club, I think going into the week, I think people thought this was going to be, because it's a shorter course, it's an older school course, that maybe it was going to be a low-scoring affair, but it ultimately turned out to be a pretty tough challenge for the guys, mostly due to weather.
Right. Yeah, you had the weather causing problems. You had, but I mean, it's one of those things nowadays. If a course or the tour really wants to make a course difficult, they can, and it's just a matter of how. And plus, like you mentioned, the weather can be a factor there as well, with winds or whatever have you. But I thought it played pretty well. I think that's about what you could ask for if you're the tour or Philly Cricket Club. A thrilling event that comes down to the last hole. But to your point, I did want to point this out before we get into the what's in the bag, that what a week for Team Shrixon or Team Cleveland. Because you had, not only did you have Lowry and Straka coming down the stretch, with a chance to win it, but at the Myrtle Beach, you also had Ryan Fox win that one, who's also on Team Trixon. So big week for Team Trixon all around on the PGA Tour.
Chipped in on a playoff.
Yes, he did. It was a dramatic win.
So pretty sweet there. But yeah, let's take a look at Sepp's bag. His Team Strixon Cleveland, except at the top of his bag where he goes Paradigm, AI Smoke, Triple Diamond Max. Matches that up with the fairway woods. He goes 3 wood, 7 wood. So he's on that 7 wood trend that you're seeing, not only the tour pros playing, but you're seeing more and more golfers put those high lofted fairway woods in there. Then he goes Strixon ZXI combo set, ZXI 5s for his 4 and 5 irons, and then 6 to 9 ZXI 7. And then goes with the new Cleveland RTZ wedges. We learned a lot about those with Roger Cleveland a couple weeks ago. Goes with that for his pitching wedge all the way through the gap, and then has an old trusty Odyssey Tuttle Stroke Lab putter that has treated him well. He's kind of an irons and putting is kind of his strength. Yep. It was reflected in his win, 9th in strokes gained on the approach, 2nd in strokes gained putting.
Yep,
that's a good combo, especially at a course where maybe distance isn't everything that you need there. So
yeah, this is a pretty classic bag in terms of. You've got, I think there's a certain, a lot of guys on tour will blend together or match up the driver in the woods, which he does. And then you have a combo set in the irons, which, again, more and more popular. And I also wanted to point out, too, if you go to the golfwrx.com, kind of the blog post or the page that they have for his winning what's in the bag, you actually see a 3-iron there, and it appears to be a ZXI 5 as well that he probably interchanges a little bit with that 7 wood. Obviously this week he played the 7 wood, but you never know, maybe a different course, maybe a different setup, maybe something like Quail, I don't know, could put the 3-iron in the bag. So I think that's a pretty common, I'm sure a lot of pros carry 15 or 16 clubs and just swap out based on conditions or what's needed that week. So I just wanted to point that out because it's kind of cool that we were able to get those, you're able to see those photos from Golf WRX there.
Yeah. So Sepp wins the event leading into this week's PGA Championship. It's got the makings of a great tournament. Obviously, they're getting a lot of weather down there.
Yeah.
In Charlotte, lots of rain. I think it's 2 days in a row now they've had to pull people off the course. We'll see if they can dry that out, if it can get a little, firmer. Right. But I think if it stays soft like that, then, you want to look at those players
that have some distance.
And that, can hit the high irons into the greens with their long irons, those longer holes. So you're those guys typically are the ones you're thinking of anyways, but you're thinking of your Rory McIlroys, your Bryson DeChambeau's, Scotty Scheffler. The guys that can hit it far and that are really good with their long irons.
When the course does get wet like that, I know we're going into the PGA Championship preview here, and I know we have one other topic we're going to cover here, but I just wanted to kind of follow up with that point there. Quail Hollow is already a long golf course, and you've seen in the history of who's won that event. Obviously, Rory's been so successful there because he's had some length, and you're right. Like that event is only going to benefit longer hitters because the course is only going to play that much longer if it's soft. The rough is really thick now, probably if you get some rain. So to that end, we're going to give our picks here at the end of the show, but you probably want to lean on guys that have a little bit of distance and can use that strength to not overpower the course, but keep up really with what the course is going to throw at you.
Yeah. So should be an awesome tournament. Like I said, stick around after we talk with Kevin. Drew and I are going to be making our picks. We got a little format for it. So stay tuned for that. But then finally wrapping up the turn here, a guest you all know very well, Bella McCauley. Of course, she's had, quite the year. Got to play at the ANWA. Just was competing in the NCAA tournament last week. Just missed out on advancing to the finals. But some pretty cool news. She has been named to the U.S. Palmer Cup team. And the Palmer Cup is now it's a men's and women's combined team event, Ryder Cup style. Top collegiate golfers on the American side playing against Great Britain and Ireland. So pretty cool tournament, pretty cool format, pretty big honor. She kind of keeps stacking up those accolades. And, obviously, she's earned every single one of them, but really happy for her. So congrats to Bella on being named to the Palmer Cup team.
Yeah, this is, again, like you mentioned, just another addition to the resume that she's already building for herself, in a strong way. That it's pretty incredible what she's doing, and I know I don't think she's been super, at least in the plenty of times we've talked to her, hasn't been super, outwardly expressive about I'm going to play on the LPGA Tour someday. But she's building that trajectory, and it's been really cool to watch. And so it's been really cool because she's been again getting fit with Aaron Roth, as you heard on that discussion with him. What is it, a month and a half ago? We talked with him about that. And it's been a decade or so that they've been working together. To see that progression and what she's achieved in that time is really cool for us at Second Swing to see that. So, and I know Aaron's pretty proud of that and proud of her. So it's really cool.
Yeah, so hopefully we get to hear from Bella here soon on this podcast, kind of talking about everything that you just heard. But so that wraps up the turn. So let's head right into today's featured interview. We have Mr. Kevin Kraft joining the show once again. Yeah,
it's it's always fun to catch up with Mr. Kevin Kraft. He has a pretty busy schedule this year as far as competition. He's obviously already gotten started with a couple of those things. So we talked to him about that and how his goals are going into the year as a guy who's, he's kind of it's almost like split between the stuff he's doing in senior only events and also the, trying to keep up with some of the younger guys in some of these, other professional events he does. So great to catch up with Kevin here. He's talking about his schedule for the year. Today we want to talk about Kevin's competition results, feedback from 2024, and then look ahead to 2025. And so we last caught up with you. This was prior to Q School. So we'll talk about that in a second. But just want to get your kind of key, takeaway or what you kind of learned about what you accomplished, about your game, about yourself. How did you think 2024 went as in terms of the playing competition side?
I think it's only fair to look at it as a pretty decent year. I would really like to have 2, maybe 3 swings back, whether they were putts or bunker shots or whatever. Just a couple situations would have made 2024 just an extraordinary year.
Yeah.
Instead, I'm, dwelling on things that maybe I shouldn't necessarily dwell on, but there were a couple of frustrations. There were a lot of good things too. So I learned a bit more about what I really need to grind on in order to make myself even more competitive.
Yeah.
Partial shots I've been terrible at for too long, so I'm trying to work on those in the simulators in the morning. I need a 100-yard club. I legitimately played the entire year last year without a
100-yard club. That seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, it does. So what
would actually be counterintuitive is if you ever set up for a tee shot or set up for a golf hole and you're like, well, that'll get me to 100 yards.
But isn't that what we do usually? It's like, if I can get it to 100 yards, it'll be all right.
Well, people do if they have a 100-yard club.
Yeah, well, I don't. So I've been playing 60 degrees, and I can't hit my 60 100 yards anymore.
Yeah.
So, but I've been playing 54 degree, and it's not really a comfortable 100-yard swinger either.
Yep.
So I am making adjustments.
Fair.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, again, a few swings you wanted back. You did. You still accomplished some cool things. Pennsylvania Senior Open.
That was a good one.
Winning that is kind of cool.
It is cool.
Probably not quite as cool as winning the Pennsylvania State Open the year before. I know we've talked. First of all, go watch Dinner with a Winner with Kevin.
That was awesome.
We dive into this stuff a little bit deeper. Kind of how you're thinking about winning that tournament and beating a bunch of younger guys. I bet that was kind of fun. But that's still the Pennsylvania Senior Open. That's pretty cool. So it's not like I think you can when you say it would have been a home run year maybe if for a couple of things and some qualifiers or I think the elephant in the room I'm thinking of is U.S. Senior Open missing the cut by a shot. So
that's the one I think that ultimately hurt the most because it was right there. And when you bogey the last hole, it's so hard to separate the previous 35 holes from what you do on the last hole, right? It just leaves that bad taste in your mouth when, I didn't do anything wrong on the 18th hole. I missed my tee shot a touch to the left based on the fact that there's a creek down the right side that I couldn't fly. So I didn't want to hit it over there, so I hit it over here, and I missed the fairway by a foot. My lie, I could line up the top 100 players in the world, and I don't think any one of them that looked at the lie that I had there, I don't think any of them would have said, yeah, man, that's going to come out hot. Like, it was down there.
Yeah.
I had a cross bunker about 60 yards in front of me. I didn't know if I could get it over the cross bunker. I mean, I'm looking at this thing going, oh my gosh, how can I get this thing even close to the green? Can I get it over this cross bunker? So, yeah, I had some wind behind me, but that didn't even factor.
You're just trying to get the club face on the golf ball.
Absolutely. Dig it out of the situation that it's in, move it forward, try to get it up to the front of the green if possible. When that ball came off the club face, I actually went, yes, because in the air, it looked perfect. And I'd gotten enough on it that A, it was getting over that cross bunker, and B, I thought it was going to get up, potentially into the middle of the green. And it went, I had 137 front, 154 pin, and that shot went 176 yards. I will never, to my deathbed, I will never know how that ball came out of there like that.
And like you said,
I know well enough how to read a fly or lie. That was not a fly or lie. That thing was never coming out of there, and it just came out like a rocket. I don't know.
Again, game of inches, because if you hit that fairway, your tee shot is a couple feet to the right. That's not a concern at all.
Correct.
You more than likely hit the middle of the green and 2-putt, and you're playing Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
That's golf. That's golf.
Yeah, it is golf. That's for sure.
Yeah. But to your point, though, I think a lot of, it's not to this maybe level, but I'm sure there are players that can relate to that, where maybe it's a match with their buddies, or maybe it's trying to break 80 for the first time or break 90 for the first time. And you always think about the last hole. If you end up making a bogey or a double bogey on the last hole, you miss a short putt, because you, up to that point, you put yourself in that spot and you think, all right, I've done my job for 17 holes, or I've done my job for 35 holes. So I just have to do the job one more time. When in reality, now you look back, there's shot here, shot there, all over that you could have had back.
On 17, I came up short with my tee shot, and I think I putted from the fringe, and I ran it like 7 feet by and made the 7-footer. If I had missed the 7-footer and made par on 18, I probably would have felt less bad than I do now.
Yeah, you probably.
Why? Because it's the exact same end result.
Yeah.
Right? I still would have failed to make the cut by a shot.
Yeah.
But it's just the fact that you've dropped it at the last second. You've failed from the jaws of victory.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to look at that as getting there is the winning. I mean, look,
that's 3 U.S. Senior Opens in 4 years.
Yeah, I'm a club fitter, right? I'm just a fat old club fitter. That's all, So why should I have expectations that I should be able to make cuts in majors?
Yeah,
I don't even know if I have an answer for that.
I mean,
I maybe I shouldn't. But
if anything, though, it's very clear you have the game. It's very clear that you have the game.
On occasion, it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
just trying to make those occasions as often as possible.
Q School now. Let's talk about that quick. So let's briefly, just for the viewers and listeners that aren't aware, what's the formatting and the stages like for senior or senior
for
tour,
Champions
Champions Tour, Q School.
For Champions Tour, there's 2 stages. There's a first qualifying site, and then there's finals. So they'll take about 12 to 15 guys per site, somewhere in that neighborhood. So you get about 40, maybe 45 total qualifiers out of the 3 sites. And then you go to finals, and there's 5 cards on offer.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard.
So it is
like,
hard.
It's
just mathematically the odds are against you. But we were following you as well during the Q School, and again, it was. I mean, the game is there, right? It seems like it's maybe. I think you've said before it was putting at Q School anyway.
Yeah,
that kind of cost you maybe.
And I didn't putt. I don't feel like I putted badly. I hit a lot of really good putts, but I only made 1 putt outside of 6 feet, and that was on the 4th hole of first day. So I hit it really well. I didn't necessarily knock the flag down all the time, but I hit a ton of greens in regulation, managed my game really well. If you were following along, was there any point where you just went, will you make a birdie? Because I only made 5 the whole week.
A little bit.
Because
that tone I wouldn't really use because
I should have.
I know you
definitely should have.
I don't feel like I have the authority to use that tone.
I feel like I needed just a kick in the pants or something to get it going.
Yeah, it kind of speaks to at that level of golf. There's a moment or maybe a line where competitive golf means making birdies when they're there versus I know saving pars is a big deal.
Yeah,
but to you needed that's kind of the difference is you needed to make a few more birdies.
Yeah. So number 2, then number 6, and then 11, and then 15 are par 5s. If you are a professional and you take care of business, you should birdie a lot of par 5s, right? Yeah. I mean, if you can keep it in play, you're probably going to have wedge in your hand a lot.
Yep.
So I had 16 opportunities to birdie par 5s. I didn't do a very good job of that. If I only made 5 birdies for the week, I did not do a very good job on the par 5s.
Yeah.
So, that leans toward what do I need to do to be better on par 5s?
Yeah.
And it's not just putting. I mean, I got to get closer.
Sure.
I either need to hit better shots out of the fairway going for it, or I need to hit better wedge shots when I've had to lay up.
Mm-hmm.
So, grinding on wedges, number 1 thing we're going to do this year.
Okay. So before we go into 2025, kind of looking ahead, I'm going to make you give yourself a letter grade for 2024.
Yeah, so I guess I'm going to be the teacher that, woke up on the wrong side of bed and coffee maker broke and had a flat tire. I guess I'll give it a B+.
Okay.
I mean, if you look back at the results, won the Pennsylvania Senior. That was an awesome way to start the year. Missed getting through U.S. Open locals by a shot. But I shot 68, so I shouldn't complain too much there. Failed to qualify for the first time for the Massachusetts Open in 5 years. So that was a bit of a bummer. But one-day qualifiers are tough. You either show up and you've got it or you don't, right? Yep. So no big deal there. But finished, qualified for the U.S. Senior Open. Finished 22nd out of 132 in New Hampshire. Finished 25th out of 156 at the Pennsylvania Open. Finished 31st out of 156 at the Colorado Senior Open. First time I played that event. Had a hole-in-one, won a car.
That's right. That's right.
It's not like I should look back and be like, yeah, this was a bad year. It wasn't. But, man, couple swings.
I think it's just the natural competitor in you is just like, what if on a couple of those kind of.
I mean, if I'd had that one shot at the Senior Open and that one shot at at Q School. I get to play the weekend at Senior Open. I get to finals. It would have been it would have been just magical. It would have been an unbelievable year. So, who knows if, what it's going to look like this year. U.S. Senior Open's changing its qualification process. Instead of being one stage and then you're in, there's now a local and then a sectional and then getting in. The worst part of that was I've been keeping my fingers crossed that the place that I've been going for the last 4 years would be a sectional site, and it's a local site. So there was talk at some point of those who had been winners of the state Senior Opens being exempt through the first stage of qualifying. If that pans out, I'm actually going to be a little bummed because I would really like to go play
that course.
I love the Cascades.
Yeah.
It's just, I love everything about that place. Last year when I went down and played my practice round, I got through about 12 holes and the skies just opened up. And I am not one to particularly relish playing in the rain. Matter of fact, if Wednesdays are my day off, and if Wednesday comes around and I look out the window and it's pouring, I'm probably not going outside. At all. So, but I love being there so much. I was just like, let it go. I finished out my practice round, sopping wet. I mean, just drenched to the core.
One of the few places, if not the only place that you would have.
There's a few others that I would probably have done it too, but it's certainly one of them. I just love that facility so much down there. So I'd like to go back, though. I would also like to not have to go through that portion of qualifying. So we'll see what happens. I did a little poking around, and looks like Deal, New Jersey. Deal Country Club is a old Donald Ross golf course that looks kind of right up my alley. So I'd probably try and go there if I get to finals or to the sectionals.
Sure. So with that said, in 2025, you mentioned the Senior Open qualifying. Is there any other specific goals that you have, or you just kind of just go play your best and results will happen?
I would just like to be better. I would just like to feel like I had a great year in terms of putting last year. Like, I had first time in a long time where I've had positive self-talk around the putter, right? I went through 13 putters in 2023. I used
famously.
One last year. Yes, famously. Infamously. So I feel like I've got a much better grasp on that side of the game. I need to tighten up my wedge game. I need to work on the partial shots. How am I going to play it when I've got 180 downhill to a back pin, and I just feel like 7-iron is not going to get there, but I have always been afraid that 6 is going to blow it over the green. I've got this phobia of being over the green.
Yeah.
I never go long, except for 18th hole at U.S. Senior Open. I never go long. I'm always coming up short, if anything, which I suppose if you think about it, keeping the ball between you and the hole tends to be a pretty good,
most of the time,
idea, but I sometimes don't get to where I want to get to because I'm afraid that it's going to go too far. So I've got to learn to hit partial shots, and I've been terrible at trying to take something off of a shot. I typically hit fat hooks. It's not a good look. Fat hooks are not good shots.
Yeah. I agree with that. So we've got, so it's not necessarily a results based,
no,
look
and
at 2025.
I don't think it would be fair to try to put 2022 against 23 against 24 against 25, right? Because who knows what's going to happen in terms of qualifying. I'll go back up, try to qualify for Massachusetts Open. If I get into the Massachusetts Open, it looks like they're playing a really cool golf course on Cape Cod, and I get in there, okay, how much influence does that make on my season?
Yeah.
Right? Maybe I don't get into the Senior Open this year. Maybe I do. So I've been so fortunate to have gotten into 3 out of 4.
Yeah.
Right? That's ridiculous. That's doing something that most people don't get a chance to do. So I am extremely fortunate that I've been able to do that. Can I continue to do it? Likely no, but won't be from a lack of trying, right?
Oh, so I love that. That's the best part. You're gonna keep trying.
Yeah. So
we're gonna keep rooting you on.
So that one, I'll keep doing. Going to add a couple events to my schedule this year. Connecticut has a senior open that is now open to anybody. Their standard open is now also open to anybody that has qualifier to get into, but I don't think there's qualifier for the seniors. And then I'm going to try and do Texas senior as well. So add 2 tournaments to the schedule. I had to skip Texas due to my wrist last year. So that was the other thing. I went through about a 6-week period leading into Q school where I really didn't play much.
Yeah, you were injured
because I was nursing this wrist. So fingers crossed that won't become too much of an issue this year. I'd really like it not to be.
Yeah, I mean it's. I mean, we as a team here at Second Swing always are rooting for you, but we also just have the respect that like you're still fitting full time. And, at the time, I know, in a dream world, you'd have more time and freedom to go practice and stuff, and that make a difference. But it's kind of cool in a way that you're able to beat so many people that are just playing golf all the time.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. But it's it's a testament to what this company is and what they've done for me that I have the opportunities that I do have. I've said it before and I'll say it again. There's no coincidence that all the good things that have happened to me on the golf course have pretty much all happened since I joined Second Swing. I mean, to have the support and have all of this great group of people, rooting and cheering me on is awesome. And I do take everybody with me when I go, because it's not, I'm playing for me, but I'm playing for everybody here too. Because to me, this is just a big extended family. I'm super, super grateful.
Yeah, that's a great way to close, I think. So, yeah, this is the beginning of 2025. We're going to be rooting for you. I know we've got U.S. Open is the kind of the first qualifier. A few months away, but nonetheless, we'll be rooting for you. So, Kevin, as always, thank you for joining. I know the viewers and listeners will appreciate this one, and golfers, stay tuned for more content. We've got a lot coming from Kevin's visit here this week.
Love that.
And that was Kevin Kraft, our guy, talking about his schedule for the year. And actually, as of this current moment, he is one shot back at the Pennsylvania Senior Open, which he is the defending champion of, with looks like 12 holes left to go in the tournament. So he's right in the thick of it once again. Actually, he was the first round leader with a 68 yesterday, which included 7 birdies.
Jeez.
And then he's stumbled a little bit out of the gates here in the second round, but he's still right there. So I'm hoping maybe by the time you're listening to this, he might be a back-to-back champion.
Maybe a two. Yeah, back-to-back would be sweet. But
let's get into the PGA Championship picks. So we have been toying with a couple different formats throughout this. For Augusta, we just did the kind of the Masters.com format. What we're going to do now, I don't know, you may or may not be familiar with the website runyourpool.com, but as a company, we do this for all of our employees, and so we're going to use that format. And that format is essentially you pick 6 golfers, 1 from each tier, and the tiers are decided by the golfers' odds to win the tournament. So there's the top 10 players in terms of most likely to win are one tier, then the next 10 are a tier, and so basically you have a selection of the top 10 players in the world. 11 to 20, 21 to 30, 31 to 40, 41 to 50,
and 50,
50 plus is a tier of its own. So, and again, those are with the whole live thing. It went from world rankings, and now they do it by odds to win the tournament to get those live guys in there. So, so what we're going to do is make our picks. We're going to go through each tier who we've got, and we're going to have our own, our own lineup of 6 players. And then the other caveat to the scoring here is that the best 5 of your 6 players count, and it's just a pure score relative to par. And the caveat here is if you have any player that misses the cut on that day, so Saturday, Sunday, if I pick Rory McIlroy and he misses the cut, Saturday, Sunday, he will then be awarded the score that is the worst that actually a player shot that day. So if someone ended up firing an 83 that day, then Rory gets an 83 for the score. So that way, you don't get a benefit of any kind for a guy missing the cut if the course plays tough. So I hope that all makes sense. I kind of threw a lot at everybody right there. But nonetheless, we're going to go with our picks here. So I'll let you lead us off here, Mr. Bauer. You did win the Masters.com.
We each won one. So you got the Players, I got the Masters.
Yeah.
And we got this one, a couple more majors. So we'll see who kind of has the year-end victory total.
That's
but
right.
with my first pick, I'm going to go with world number 1, Scotty Scheffler. Obviously, he got back into the winners column at the CJ Cup. Byron Nelson took last week off, so he should be coming in fresh. Sounds like he's going to be Ubered to the course every day this year, so that's good. But hard not to pick against him. I know that debated between him and another player that you're probably going to pick just based on his history at the course. But I think Scotty's kind of due for a major win and one that's not at Augusta.
Yeah, that's I mean, it's you can't really argue against picking Scotty here. I am going to go with Rory for my tier 1 or top tier pick here, and I guess the reason for that is I think the floodgates are going to be open for him now. I think I said that before, but maybe he's a little freed up to win another major now that it's been. He finally got one off that off his back after 10 years or 11 years. And so this is a course that he's had a ton of success at. So that is, we went with the top 2 choices here, really, in Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy. So to confirm now, that eliminates the following players from being picked again, right? So that top tier included Scotty, Rory McIlroy, Bryson DeChambeau, John Rahm, Xander Schauffele, Justin Thomas, Brooks Koepka, Colin Morikawa, Ludwig Aubert, and Joaquin Niemann. So moving on to tier 2, do you want to go and are we going to go snake or do we want to go just alternating here? It doesn't matter.
We can just alternate.
Okay.
Tier 2, I'm going to go with Patrick Cantlay. Surprisingly, he hasn't won since 2022. But he's always kind of consistently there, right?
Yep.
You always see his name on the leaderboards. Obviously, this past weekend, he made a nice charge late to get his name way up on the leaderboard. At the Truist Championship, he's never won a major. Last year, his Ryder Cup partner finally broke through. Maybe it's time for Cantlay to kind of finally get his first major, and he's got the game to do it. So
yeah, he's had a couple solid finishes at Quail Hollow as well. So definitely. Can't argue with that one. He does have, I don't want to say a bad track record at majors, but he's certainly been, I think he's probably got the talent where he probably should have 1 or 2 by now. With that said, I'm going to go with Sepp Straka. I believe I picked him at Augusta and it did not go well, but I'm going back with him again. I think I think he finished, was it last year in the, what was the Wells Fargo Championship? He was the top 10 finish at Quail Hollow. Obviously, the game feels good after coming off a win, so I'm going to go with him. In this category were some pretty big names as well. You had obviously Cantlay and Sepp Straka. You also had Fleetwood, Matsuyama, Tyrrell Hatton, Victor Hovland, Spieth, Shane Lowry, Corey Connors, and Russell Henley. That is a library of really good ball strikers there in that second tier. So, third tier is where things get maybe a little interesting, I think. Not as much of the household names, but I think guys that certainly have the capability of winning. Who you got from tier 3?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Sung Jae Im. He's a 2-time PGA Tour winner. He had a good appearance up at the Masters. He's kind of been struggling a little bit lately, just not what you're used to him. But overall, he's one of the best ball strikers out there, except for, weirdly, his iron play. But you look at he ranks in the top 20 in strokes off the tee. He's 11th around the greens, 26th in putting. That's a really good combination. But he's 179th in approach, which that's going to limit you. But I think it's more he's the past couple of months, he has been getting closer to kind of tour average.
Yep.
So maybe that's a sign that things are to come. I've always liked Sung Jae Im, so I'm a little biased there. He's kind of one of my boys. And so we're going to go with Sung Jae there and hope he finally kind of has maybe his big major moment.
Yeah. That's he has been knocking on the door a few times. He's been really close to a couple majors before. I'm going with Patrick Reed here. This is a kind of another course history play. He has really good track record at Quail Hollow, and I think it's one of those where I'm kind of taking a flyer on a live guy here, mainly because I think there is sort of it's almost impossible to really evaluate the live guys versus the PGA Tour guys, and so because of this, I think there might be some hidden value there with how he's been playing. And so that's my guy, Patrick Reed here in Tier 3. Some really other big names here. I thought about Wyndham Clark just with his strength off the tee, but ultimately, and Minwoo Lee, I guess in that same breath, a bunch of ball speed and distance off the tee. But Patrick Reed's my guy in Tier 3 there.
Yeah, so Tier 4, I actually made I was debating between two guys. I was debating between Siwoo Kim and Tony Finau.
Okay.
And I decided to go with Tony Finau.
Okay.
I know he hasn't been having the best year by any means, but had a top 15 at the Truist. And then I think at Quail Hollow, you want players that can hit the ball far, especially with the wet conditions, and can get a lot of birdies.
Yep.
And Tony Finau is typically that's kind of his game. He can hit the ball far, he can get a lot of birdies. Yeah, he's going to make some mistakes, and his putter can get cold. But plus, similar to Sung Jae, he's one of my favorite golfers.
Yeah.
I like his style, I like the way he plays the game. Obviously, following him through the Netflix series and his family is really cool. So I'm going with Tony Finau. It's more of a heart over head pick.
I like
there.
it. I mean, I'm going kind of the same route in that regard with Tier 4 here, and that's Max Homa. And a guy who, his struggles have been pretty well documented. He's talked about it a lot himself. But I think he may have found something in his game at Augusta. He had a solid finish there. I believe he was right on that top 12 number to get him in next year to that tournament. He also had a really good, a really solid follow-up performance last week at the Cricket Club. So he's won here too. Again, this is kind of a course history play as well. And I like Max Homa. So that's my pick there in Tier 4.
Tier 5, how I just said I went with a player that hits it long and, gets a lot of birdies. Well, I'm going the exact opposite here. I'm going with Brian Harman.
Yeah. That's actually not a bad strategy, though, kind of covering your bases of the different guys.
Two different styles, but, he obviously won the Valero Texas Open, made the cut the Masters, didn't really do much there, had a rough Saturday. Shot a 77 there, I believe. Other than that, he was 1 under every other round. But T for 3 at RBC Heritage, place he's played well. Truist Championship, not a whole lot going on there for him, but he's a previous major champion. He's got a win under his belt. He's got a few, good performances. And if you go with the every other week, because he went first, T for 36, T for third, T for 46, maybe that math is mathing up there. So
yeah, no, that's good. That's good. And Hartman clearly he has the sort of mental makeup too to stick around in these big events. Obviously, if you win the Open in those conditions the way he did. There's a certain advantage you have over most players there. So I actually am also going to make a bit of a change here, a last-minute curveball, if you will. I had been leading Dean Burmester. He's got some strength off the tee, but something about Will Zalatoris' name is calling me right now. He's had, he's a big game hunter in a sense. These majors, he typically tends to show up. He hangs around. He nearly won that year. Thomas did a few years ago, and I think he's got, he's had some injury concerns and hasn't been super consistent lately, but he tends to, weirdly enough, the putter has been a struggle for him, but he always putts well in majors. So I'm hoping that rings true this week. So I'm going to go with Will Zalatoris.
All right. I like that. And hopefully, it'd be good to see Will back up there. I think just for his confidence too. Yeah. He's a fun golfer to watch. My last pick, I'm going to go with Harris English. He's got a win already this year up at the Farmers Insurance Open. 3 of his last 4 starts, top 20 finishes. Includes a T for 12 at the Masters, and then a T for 11 here this past week at the Truist. So he's playing good golf. He's a veteran, and he's already got a win under his belt, so he kind of knows how to close a tournament. And
he has played well in majors like this, where it's length is needed, ball striking is needed. There's going to be some thick rough. I think back to the U.S. Open that I think Rahm won at Torrey. I think he was up there for a lot of that, as was Russell Henley. And so that's that's another name there. He can certainly make some noise in this weekend's events. I'm going to go Gary Woodland. Again, another one that's kind of like a fandom pick, but obviously he had the brain tumor, and he's been kind of coming back from that the last year plus or so, and I think he has found some form this year. A couple nice finishes lately, and he also has that ball speed and that distance to keep up with the Rorys of the world this week if that ends up being a big advantage. So I'm gonna go Gary Woodland. So
all right, so we'll do a quick we'll each kind of read our teams. So this is for their PGA Championship. Our 6 picks. Drew, what's your roster looking like?
Yeah, I got the roster here. Rory McIlroy, Sepp Straka, Patrick Reed, Max Homa, Will Zalatoris, and Gary Woodland.
All right, and I got Scotty Scheffler, Patrick Cantlay, Sung J M, Tony Finau, Brian Harmon, Harris English. So those are our teams. Let the best man win. And reviewers there, comment, whose team you like more. And if you're running your own picks or something, drop those in the comments as well. We'd love to hear them.
Yeah, tell us if we made crucial errors, but do it before the tournament starts. Don't tell us Sunday afternoon that we made a mistake in picking one of these guys. We get that all the time, actually. It's kind of funny. But so, yeah, that's great. Obviously, a major week is a lot of fun, so I hope everybody enjoys watching the tournament. Got some YouTube things to discuss here quickly as well. We got live at lunch this week. We're going to be actually joined by Blaine Seitz, our fitter down at the PGA Coaching Center, Second Swing fitting location, doing some testing. We're going to do kind of that long game testing where you have a 7-wood, 4-hybrid, iron. We're going to be doing all those via TrackMan, so tune in for that. Also, stay tuned, of course, for our Fitter's Choice and our Tour Van series. Those are both right in the thick of it, launching some really cool content, unique stuff. Really cool, for sure.
Yeah, and then on the Second Swing side, we have our major contest for the second major of the year happening in the month of May. You can win, custom set of irons, custom wedges. You can win the Rory McIlroy spec driver and fairway woods along with a custom set of irons. So some cool prizes. Head to our social media channels. You can earn some extra entries there. And then obviously you want to submit your main entry on our website. And then as always, check out our, if you're in the market for some golf clubs, check out our best value golf clubs page. Anything from drivers, irons, you name it. A lot of very recent models that aren't brand new, but, a generation or two old in excellent condition, going for unbeatable values. So check those out.
Yeah. And without further ado, subscribe to the Second Swing Thoughts podcast, or subscribe to the Second Swing Golf YouTube channel. Or you know what? Maybe just do both. Maybe subscribe to the podcast on the audio platforms such as Spotify and Apple, and then also subscribe to the Second Swing YouTube channel. We got all kinds of content churning out every single week, including this here podcast. So stay tuned. We'll be back next week, and hopefully with some really good news, at least on my team with my roster. I'll take down Sean's team at the PGA Championship. So thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next week.